were literally doing everything, as most business owners do. You are the accountant, and you're also the marketeer, and you're also the person serving coffee at the front of the till. Literally. How is that? Has that improved, or is that, how are we getting onto that journey? Because that's your kind of 1 year goal, to get to that point.
Yeah, I think I definitely underestimated the amount of work that was required, and fundamentally, having staff there the whole time is expensive. So I pick up a lot of the slack. I still am.
So I'm Matthew Cox, and I'm a business strategist. I've run and grown multiple businesses over the last 15 or so years. Join me on my journey with helping other entrepreneurs figure out what their goals are, how to set them, and how to achieve them. Right, welcome gang. Today we have got our podcast guest on, who runs a indoor cycling and spin calf studio. What we're going to do is we're going to have a look at the business model and really try and tweak it. And my concerns are that this business is going for too many things all at once. It doesn't quite have a clear USP, and in order to scale it, it's going to be incredibly difficult. So let's have a nice little conversation with our guest today. Hopefully we don't make her feel too uncomfortable, but we're going to ask some pressing questions, and hopefully she'll have some little nuggets of information to take away and actually grow her business. Welcome everybody. We've got Davinia McGann here this morning with me, who is Chateau Velo down in Peacehaven in East Sussex. And we're going to be having a little chat about her business and kind of what her 10-year, 5-year, 1 year goals are. I'm really excited today. Cycling is a real good hobby of mine. So this should be a nice fun chat. And I've actually done some work with Davina before as well. So yeah, first of all, tell us a bit about your business, kind of in a sort of elevator, maybe slightly extended elevator pitch type thing.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. Thanks so much for having me on. As you said, I have Chateau Velo over in Peacehaven, and my job is about getting people sweaty, smiley and satisfied. So we are slightly unusual. We have a cafe at the front of the building serving some amazing award-winning coffee and most things you might expect from a cafe. But where there's business in the front, we've got party in the back, because we have got a secret, or hopefully not so secret after this, spin studio where we do indoor cycling classes, and that's the sweaty, smiley, satisfied part. So a real mixture of, what you might expect and what you might not. Yeah.
And how long have you been going?
We have been there for 18 months now, just over. Okay. So we had our first spin class, our first indoor cycling class, on the 2nd of January 2023. So still very new to the business world. This is my first business, first time I've gone into business and kind of had my own thing working for myself. So it's been, quite a journey already so far.
Good stuff. A question that I always like to ask all the podcast guests is, what was young Davina like at school? So like that journey from there all the way maybe through, because this isn't obviously what you've always done, running your own business and the indoor studio and CAF. So kind of that school Davina to now.
It's a tricky one. I would say I've always been fairly bright. I was quite lucky. I found school relatively easy from an academic perspective. So working through, always enjoyed the kind of mathsy side of things, which is probably part of my career path to where I am now. I was not particularly athletic. I would not have said I was, big into sports or anything. We played netball. I did some stuff outside of school. I used to do martial arts, but would never have described myself as being particularly sporty. So the move into being a fitness professional is potentially not necessarily expected. But when I got to A-level, or when it came to picking our A-level subjects, I did economics.
Okay.
And that kind of business side, I absolutely loved. It just made complete sense to me, and everything kind of seems to make sense, I guess.
Yeah.
And so that was, an easy step. And maybe was the kind of foretelling of becoming an entrepreneur one day.
Because you're also a chartered accountant, is that right?
Yeah, so my career path is a little bit unusual. So I left college, went to uni, did some more economics because that was the bit that I enjoyed. Then decided I'd always loved the idea of teaching. I think that was kind of a natural thing. So coming back to your question about school, I guess I would describe myself as a bit of a leader, was very good at organising people and getting people places and doing things. And I like the idea of being a teacher at the end of the day, but felt that coming straight out of uni to become essentially a maths teacher didn't make sense for me. I wasn't ready for it yet. So I was like, what do I do that involves maths? Oh, I'll become an accountant. So I actually I joined an accounting practice in Brighton, did my training contract. So I became ICAW qualified very long time ago now, dare I say, having started in audit before moving on to then teaching accountancy was kind of the next step in that journey. And then management within that entity before via the Caribbean ending up in Peacehaven with my own studio.
as you do.
As you do, that classic kind of level.
That's really great. I like those kind of stories really of how people kind of evolve into where they are, and that kind of, although people wouldn't have always that connection with maybe being like a chartered accountant and running your own business, because traditionally accountants are quite risk adverse, I would say, as a generalisation. Obviously, there'll be ones out there that are not. Clearly, you are one of them. But I think it's a transferable skill, and those accountancy and the business entrepreneurial things are quite good because you need to know your numbers, and that is like a key thing to running a business, really. If you kind of go on a whim and a prayer, then you're not really going to get anywhere, I don't think. Yeah, no,
absolutely. And I think that's possibly something that I completely didn't understand. And I'm sure many people looking at going into business longer term might not realise that you can start in a kind of traditional career such as accounting and actually then use that to get into any industry that you want to. So, that opens a lot of doors in itself, but actually fundamentally understanding business and the numbers behind it is a really valuable skill. And, as a very successful businessman yourself, I'm sure you appreciate all the number side of things, because it's
I think they're really important to understand those numbers and the KPI and your figures and the rest of it. And I know you're an advocate of various bits of accountancy software and so on, and I think they're really important to not just leave your accountant person, bookkeeper to it and just hope for the best. You need to understand those numbers as a business owner. And then that will drive you forward from there, because you'll understand where the things are going wrong and where they're working well and all that kind of stuff, and where your profit's actually going. So,
it's a definite battle. And I think even though I am, a qualified accountant and I know these things from a technical perspective, taking the step into real business and having your own business has still been quite an eye-opener. And there's definitely skills that come into play that I didn't necessarily realise. And so if you are, on the accounting side, you've got to be able to explain those numbers to your business. And if you're on the business side, you've got to be able to get an understanding of those. As you said, working together with the finance side to make sure that you're getting the information that you need to make the decisions that you need to.
No, that's good. And that kind of leads me nicely on to your sort of your goals and things, really, because obviously we have met before and we've discussed lots of various things and bits and bobs, which we won't go over. Some we may go over again anyway as we talk. But it's safe to say probably it's been a learning curve for you, I would say, going from one like a corporate type job in accountancy to being the business owner. So I'm interested to see kind of how we've got on since we spoke. I mean, that must have been probably 6 months ago. And then we spoke maybe a year before that as well, I think, didn't we, when you first went out on your own? So in terms of your kind of immediate goals, I've got you down here as from 1 year from now, to have the business where you're no longer working full-time hours / with holidays. So when we met before, you were literally doing everything, as most business owners do. You are the accountant, and you're also the marketeer, and you're also the person serving coffee at the front of the till. Literally. How is that? Has that improved, or is that, how are we getting onto that journey? Because that's your kind of 1 year goal, to get to that point.
Yeah, I think I definitely underestimated the amount of work that was required. And the nature of my business is that we have, a physical location, a physical space, and we're serving a physical product when it comes to the coffee and the cafe side of things. So we need actual people there all the time that we are open. And I've ended up doing a lot of it. And so saying earlier to your team, I haven't necessarily had proper days off, because in hospitality again.
Yeah.
Same with working in kind of the gym, fitness, wellness space. You need to be supporting people outside of their normal working hours, which means that you are open evenings, you are open weekends and doing that. And fundamentally, having staff there the whole time is expensive. So I pick up a lot of slack. I still am. It's definitely getting better. And I think I'm getting better at managing my own time around it, which is probably a really hard thing I found as being my own boss and not having someone else kind of overseeing stuff. But yeah, in a year, you know, essentially the main goal for me is to get to a point where it is I'm not doing all the overtime, and we're kind of a bit more sustainable from an energy kind of investment perspective, I think.
Okay. And then, I mean, you've got your kind of 3 to 5 year goals to have a profitable business that can support me working part-time hours. So presumably at the moment, I'm guessing that we're in a situation where the profitability is fairly low still, and it relies upon you picking up the slack. So you are making up 1.5, maybe 2 people's jobs at the moment to kind of stay out of the red, if you like.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think...
But we're out of the red now.
Almost. Very nearly there.
Oh, that's
yeah.
That's
all
worth
moving.
a fist bump.
Yeah. We are moving in the right direction. And I think, again, maybe it's a mixture of naivety and optimism. I didn't realise how long it would take to get to where we are now. But yeah, ultimately, I think for many business owners, the goal is to have the freedom to not be at work all the time.
Yeah.
Whether that is, you know, working for someone else, you don't want to be in the office doing all the hours. If you're working for yourself, you don't want to be doing all of the work all of the time.
Yeah.
And for me, it's, you know, being able to have a business that can support me. I still want to be in the business because I'm there because I love it. Ultimately, it still Sundays doesn't feel like a real job. It's just like I've just been playing around doing spin classes and making coffee and, you know, kind of engaging with people. But ultimately it's enabling me to have some downtime so I can do more things to help others and enjoy myself and all that kind of the other things that you can do when you've got some spare time.
Yes, indeed. Which brings me on to your tenure thing. I suppose you've got here, I would like to be a profitable business that's known worldwide, helping thousands realise that fitness and the ability, not a look, that I will be semi-retired.
Yeah.
So I guess the goal is really to get you to the point where you can then start working on how you would upscale the business, really, isn't it? Because you get one model working and then try and sort of cookie cutter, copy, paste, repeat type arrangement. And you got your 3 biggest challenge in reaching those goals, so we can have a kind of open and frank chat about it all. Patience, building a business that takes time. It requires investment of time, energy and money that do not pay instant dividends. This means going overdrawn in time, energy and money in short term, as I trust the process. So how are we going to go, I suppose, or what has your vision go from this kind of 1 year goal? We'll start low at the moment because the main thing is to make sure you don't get burnt out, because that's the first step, really, isn't it? So you can stabilize things. I know we talked a lot about marketing and advertising and the structure of the business and the rest of it. And we talked about the pricing structure as well, and have maybe simplifying that and things like that. Are those sort of things that you put into place, and then hopefully maybe they've assisted a bit towards getting out of the red?
Yeah. So at the beginning, I had lots of options. Yeah. And, you know, when we had a chat, you were like, well, there's almost too much there. There's too many choices. And what I did was stripped it right back. So in terms of the studio, the classes, there's fewer ways that people can get involved, but the idea is much simpler. So you can either come in whenever you want, just buy a class on its own, not a problem. You can buy a pack of classes. So you've got a little bit more commitment. You're still time limited, but you can spread them out. So if you've got a bit of a crazy routine or doing shift work that's a bit all over the place, you're not exactly sure when you can come in, you're going to commit to doing 4 classes in 2 months. So at least every 2 weeks, every fortnight, you're going to come in and get sweaty, which is great. Or you can be like, no, this is something I want to do. I want to make it part of my routine, commit a little bit more and say you're going to come more than once a week.
Yeah.
And then our unlimited membership basically is the best option
for
people to come in. And I think simplifying the choice has made it easier for people to understand what we're doing.
Yeah.
And as you say, like, the fewer choices, the easier it is to make a decision.
Okay.
So that's definitely brought, I think, more people in and helped them to commit more, which is great for us as a business, and also with the goals of a spin business, fitness. It's about helping people commit to getting healthy. So that's worked both ways, which is good.
So what the subscriptions, I'm just on your website now, really. So you've got just the two at the moment. You've got the annual open ride and then the annual VIP access. So that's much neater.
It is much
easier.
You
had about 8 options before.
Yeah.
I think as much as it's nice to offer those options, it does confuse people, and then they have to then work out what's the best package for them, and then it's also, people will be tempted to flip between them as well because there's other options. They go, well, I'm going on holiday next, for 2 weeks over the summer, so maybe I'll drop it down to this and faff about. What's the retention rate like now with them? Because that's the key to profitability, is to have that regular income coming in, so you're not starting the month like from zero, where you've paid your rent, you've paid the staff and the rest of it. Every single month you then got to fight for bookings if you've got these regular things. So is that sort of changed a bit?
I think, our retention is good compared to industry averages as well. We are a little bit higher.
Yeah.
I think the smaller nature of our studio is good, but it also means we do need to be more than average because we don't have the volume coming through.
Yeah.
For a lot of our members, it's not just about the classes, it's the community side, which is very strong for us. And that helps with the retention of those members to get them coming back in. So even if they're not coming for a class, they may come in and meet others for a coffee after a class, for example, which I think that community element is a really strong part for us.
Okay.
And means that, once people come in, the story's always the same. People first come in and they might come in for a coffee and they're like, oh, yeah, so I hear you've got a room with some bikes. And you're like,
yes.
Oh, yeah. Do you want
to have a look?
Secret door around the back.
Yeah.
And you take them in and I show them the studio and I talk to them about it. Have you ever done a spin class? Have you ever done indoor cycling? Oh, I could never do that. And the amount of people who, the perception of it, or the stories that they've heard, or it's often they've had a really bad experience and they've just gone, no, it's not for me. And then by the time I actually spend some time talking to them and say, this is how it works, this is what we do here, it's no requirement to perform, we don't have to hit a certain level, you can just come in and pedal, it's great music, lovely atmosphere. They might be like, oh, maybe I can give it a try.
Yeah.
And then once they get on the bike, they're like, oh.
Yeah, they're happy.
Yeah, they are, literally.
They're in their happy place.
Yeah,
I'm like that when
they understand. Yeah, that's the thing. You don't realise necessarily, I think you can forget the excitement that you get from it.
Yeah, exactly. So I suppose the question is, what are we going to do to get rid of that, like, kind of, I hear you have a bike shop at the back and get that profitability up so that you can not be doing 15-hour days Monday to Sunday.
Yeah.
We talked previously about marketing, subscriptions, doing some coffee related stuff as well. And I noticed, actually, I think maybe it's on your website, but I definitely saw it somewhere, where you've got Chateau Velo. I love the name because it's French and bicycle related, but I think a lot of people probably don't have that connection with it. We're not traditionally very acceptant of the Europeanness in the UK, and not acceptant, but like spelling the words and stuff like that and actually understanding. And also like the front of the store, I know it's coffee, but it looks like a cool coffee bar type thing, and it doesn't necessarily scream cycle studio. And we were going to look at some sort of different avenues of marketing it in a different way. Well, how's that going?
We're getting there, I think. So I've got.
So I saw somewhere it had
the Spin Cafe.
The Spin Cafe.
Yeah. So your suggestion was literally tell people what it does, and I think that's it's very easy to forget. And even I talk about spin classes, and some people are like, well, but what's spin? Like, oh no, indoor cycling. And when you're in something, you kind of, and with anything, you forget what it's like to be a beginner or to be outside of that place. So I took your advice. And so on our Facebook and in our Instagram bio, we talk about being the Spin Cafe. When we're doing or posting online, I try to talk about, the Spin Cafe or the Indoor Cycling Cafe. The Purple Bike Cafe.
I really like that stuff, because I think like you probably remember from uni, but there was KISS, which is Keep It Simple Stupid. And I think that just literally saying the Spin Caf really sums it up, because I wouldn't want you to lose the name. I think it's a nice name and a nice brand, but it doesn't stand on its own yet. It's good that kind of taken that on board, and those SEO as well for those blog posts and stuff. They will pick up on that, because that is probably what people will stick into Google.
Yes, and actually I've been playing around with doing some more blogging and getting some posts up to help talk about kind of the terms and the things that people will search for. So cycling fitness, indoor cycling, and that kind of stuff. And as you say, just keeping it simple and actually doing what it says on the tin, like being very clear, because it's so easy to get too technical with things, which doesn't help.
And I think my concern with the being clear stuff is that people will probably associate your local leisure centre with having your kind of spin class studio, which obviously you're in a different space to them. It's much more premium bikes. But the thing is they'll also have like a calf there or something like that. So I guess they connect those two things together. But you also do like those evenings and stuff like that. And I don't know if you do them because it's a good earner or it's because it's part of the model, really. Because I guess like when you add the cheese and the wine boards, it's very nice. I like all that sort of stuff. But it doesn't sort of scream the ethos of the kind of spin calf type thing. So I don't know what the kind of future holds for that.
Well, that's a really interesting perspective, because I think part of what I'm trying to do with the brand as a whole is about challenging some people's perceptions, because people are like, well, how can you have a cafe and sell cake if you've got exercise or these spin classes, or why are you doing wine and cheese if it's about fitness and coffee? And actually my methodology and the ethos as a whole is it's all about community, but it's all about balance. And so if you want to have a glass of wine and a cheese board, absolutely, you do not have to do a spin class to do it, but you can do them both together, and actually starting to take a much more overall view of what fitness is, the fact that it's an ability, it's not a look. It's about giving you, the energy and the ability to do more things to stay safe as you get older, rather than to wear a certain size clothes or to look a certain way, is a much mentally healthier approach. And so by having these other things, people go, so I can eat cake and do a spin class, or I can have wine in a spin class. So there's that perspective. The other part is it's about creating a community space so that it's somewhere that people can come and feel comfortable. And yes, you can do a spin class, amazing. You can do yoga, you can do Pilates. We're going to be starting some breathwork classes soon. So we're finding different ways to bring people in, but also to make use of the space as a bit of a kind of an events space, I guess. It was something that, see a lot in places like London or even central Brighton, where you have bars that host different types of events and bring different types of people in for certain things. So we have craft events, we have wine tastings. It's all about finding different ways to bring people together in that space. From a business perspective, if you've got a stronger sense of community, it helps with that retention, brings people in, gets them talking about it as a venue. And also, if you can host the event right, I'm hoping that's going to make us more money. So it's about kind of finding that balance where I want to be kind of community and soul-led in terms of the purpose and the objectives. But ultimately, if I'm not making money, I can't pay my bills. So I'm not going to be able to be there to do any of those things. So it's that balance.
It kind of prompts two questions, I suppose. One is more of an outsider's look on that for me, having gone through those sort of journeys myself, is that you do run the risk of making the business all about you as a person, because you become the community. They come to see you, you put on the events and the rest of it. It's like almost, like the landlord of a pub, they are the person that makes the pub, aren't they? Often they make or break it because the landlord's not very good or not present, or they're fun and they're cheerful or whatever. And I think you run the danger of that, which is possibly not going to move you towards maybe having a slightly more relaxed working environment. But also, in my experience, when you make it like really bespoke and you're doing all these like extra classes and you do like the evening speaking and the wine tasting, it comes back incredibly hard to scale, because you find another version of you somewhere else to do it, and then somewhere else and somewhere else and somewhere else all over. I mean, you've got big ambitions worldwide, but even if you just said East Sussex, for instance, and you were going to have 6 of them and you're going to franchise them out or lease them out to other people to run, to find 6 versions of you is going to be pretty hard as a model to find. I think it's, good for you to have that community feel, but I just worry that it's not maybe quite scalable in that sense, or it'll be hard to scale. I really hope you enjoyed this podcast today, and it's been a really, really good listen so far. But if you want to get on this podcast and come on the show, it's totally and utterly 100% free. All you have to do is come into the podcast studio, sit down, we film it for YouTube, and then we also make an audio file for Spotify, Apple, all those streaming services. What you need to do is head over to our website, www.matthewcox, that's Matthew with 2 T's, .biz. So it's matthewcox.biz. There's a preloaded form on there. Fill that in, apply to be on the podcast. We'll get back to you within a few days, get you booked in, we'll get you on here, and then we'll sort out your goals and your achievements. Back to the podcast. Yeah, so I'm just kind of wondering how we get from kind of that to maybe, even if we just focus on like, say though, let's say 6, because that's a nice low number to go to. How are we going to actually take that nice community ethos feel and apply it? Like, how do you feel that that's going to be done? Because it sounds like, to me from experience, it's a lot, like really hard to do that.
It is, I think. My vision, I guess, is twofold. There is part of it is about finding the right people, and in my kind of career so far, some of the people I've worked with have been absolutely phenomenal at what they do. And one of the messages was about, it's not about you having to be great yourself, it's about surrounding yourself with great people. And I think there was one of the American presidents talked about, you find people who are better than you at the different things. Your job is to keep them together. You are the sum
of the people that you hang around.
Yeah. And I think it's, it's kind of finding the right staff. That's not an easy or a quick thing.
Yeah.
And that's where you kind of have to trust the process a little bit and, build it, and they will come. In that, I think we're now starting to find, people I'm working with, the instructors, staff for the cafe, who are themselves incredible and are going to help to bring the whole thing up. You can train them up, and you can, use your knowledge. For me, it's my coaching and teaching to bring out the best in them that will make everything a little bit better, so that you kind of got those people to support you. But also, for me, it's not necessarily to take over the world or global domination.
Well, you've got world domination.
I have got world domination, because I don't think it necessarily has to be me in person in a place.
Yeah.
And I don't think it has to be a place. We are very lucky in that we are in a world online, and dare I say, one of the good things that came out of, the challenges that everyone's had with COVID is that people have found an online community in a lot of different places, and actually are much more accepting of creating that kind of space. And so you can hold space or create a space for people that isn't necessarily a physical space, but could be online. And so what I hope to do is to take some of our teachings and some of our approaches to the kind of the community, the support, the coaching side of the fitness into the online world. And I think that's where we can grow, influence more people, help more people, but without me having to be in a million different places at once.
So you're talking more about providing a system that would help spin class coaches learn how to be coaches. Essentially,
that is part of it.
I don't know, that made it sound too simple. But
so part of it is about supporting fitness instructors who want to offer classes that are, for example, I've done specific qualifications in size inclusive training. I've done a lot of coaching in my kind of teaching career, and bringing those bits together to support other instructors who want to teach fitness as an ability rather than a look, and move away from some of the more traditional teachings. But also to actually, almost any regular membership that you look at, whether it be kind of, from slimming clubs or, big brand exercise, indoor cycling with a screen. Everyone knows who we're talking about. I'm sure. I don't know if we can say names on here.
You can say names.
You can say names. So I think things like Peloton. People are suddenly aware that you can do on, Joe Wicks during lockdown was doing stuff on YouTube. People understand that you can do the training side without necessarily having to go to a place. But for a lot of those, what's missing is the community element. And that's something that I think I can use my experience and my expertise to create, to support people no matter where they are, even if they're not coming to my studio specifically. Yeah.
And I suppose the counter argument on my comments on that would be, if you take the Joe Wicks fact, obviously, I think there are a lot of things in life where if you're in the right place at the right time, you can do very well. And I don't know what the drop-off rate for Joe Wicks is now, but I wonder how many audience members, people are still watching his videos like 4 years later and joining in. I know people will still be doing that, but there will be, I would hazard a guess, there's a massive drop-off now. We're not in COVID lockdowns. And the community space becomes about Joe. When he says, I don't want to do this anymore and I want to work part-time, he's got to find another Joe, because he is Joe Wicks. He literally named it after himself, and he is the business, isn't he? So that is where maybe the internet allows him to scale that up a bit, because obviously it's only him. But in terms of if it was like physical locations or much more physical business, then it's quite hard to scale that if you've made it about yourself and get to the point where Joe Wicks is sitting there going, look, I've got 5-6 instructors and they're all doing their online videos, and they hold the same warmth and love in those audiences' hearts that they fell in love with Joe Wicks. That's really hard to replicate. And I think I think the first thing to do, like, I suppose just looking at the kind of medicine that I would prescribe the business, I suppose, would be, would, first of all, I think really, obviously we need to get you out of like literally working every hour of every minute of every day pretty much, and get some profitability back into the job. So many people fall into that trap where they've just created themselves a job and they're often working less than minimum wage. I mean, if you're not even drawing any money out of it, we need to sort that out. And that would be like my number one goal. And I think there's some nice, easy things that you can do to achieve that. We've talked in the break about your website, and you gave me some useful feedback that you said a lot of people ask about when the classes are. And I would say on your website, maybe on the homepage, you want to have like when the classes are. Like, you don't necessarily have to commit to they're at Tuesday and Thursday at these times. You can just say like they're between 6 o'clock in the morning and 8 o'clock at night, Monday to Sunday, if that's what the thing is. Click here to find out more. And then you want to have the like annual subscription, the lowest rate one, £19, to get people in, and on the homepage that needs to be, so that you're not kind of having to click through things. People are inherently lazy. Like most websites nowadays, you go to a homepage and then you kind of scroll up and down because it's kind of optimized for mobile phone usage, that sort of thing. The amount of people just go to the homepage and they don't even get to scroll up and down before they've got bored, let alone start clicking on things. And on the website that we were looking at, you haven't got like too much mention of coffee. The imagery might need some tweaks to it as well to really stand out, like pictures of bicycle wheels and stuff. And as I said to you, I think I asked some of my staff of what they thought the shop was, and they didn't realise that even the logo's a little wheel. So really kind of have to shout about that and focus in on the homepage. And the subscription thing, I think, is in my opinion, your key to kind of getting some consistent revenues in. So you haven't got the peaks and troughs as much.
Yeah.
I know you've ironed out some of them from the work that we talked about before, but I think that realistically, if you can really drive that and home in on it, just make those small tweaks, that should result in a lot more people being able to easily find the website and also understand what it is, that it's a spin studio. You can get the coffee and the rest of it. And also, I know we talked about this before, but I think it's cool running the coffee shop and the bike shop. And maybe I love the dream of like, it's like filling that kind of, you can be fit, but also have a cheeky something on the side. And I think that is good for your mental health. But actually, I'm a big fan of like businesses having like multiple streams of revenue.
Yeah.
And I think if you could tie those two things together, which is what you're trying to do by doing things like a loyalty reward card, or if you sign up for the £19 subscription, you get a free coffee or something. And I know we've discussed about the little tricks and stuff, like give them it to them in a cup so they can't take away, stick them in the window and it makes it look busier. All those sort of little things.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you've got to like spend your literally every waking moment thinking like, how can I actually make this business marketable? Like get those guys to sit in the window.
Yeah.
Give them a free coffee in a cup, not in a takeaway one, so they drink it. Stick a bicycle outside as well.
Yeah.
You can get a cheap one off of eBay or something, or in a stand or something like that, so that people have got that visual connection with this kind of, business is like probably seen from the outsiders as like a business with two faces. It's a calf, but also a spin cycle. So I think all those things I would work on to get that profitability up. And I don't know how much your profit margins are on your coffee. You don't have to disclose that here, because coffee and hot drinks can be quite profitable. But a lot of people I see fall into this trap of, I want the Arakabo beans and all the rest of it. And then their profit margins are squeezed because they've still got to compare their coffee prices to XYZ down the road, maybe a chain or something like that. But actually what they're doing is they're trying to tick a box of like a premium coffee, but then offer it in a competitive market. So just keep an eye on those as well. Make sure you're making good profit margins on those, because a lot of people fall into that trap. And I think that will allow you to discover what is a profitable model for you to then scale. Whether you scale it through, say, like a franchising scheme, where you might say, for instance, like I understand like everything you try to achieve locally, but we're just outside of Brighton, where yours is, and let's say you had one and it was in Hastings. It's going to be almost impossible for you to be involved with that business, so you're going to be utterly reliant upon finding another you and scaling it that way. If the scalability is to try and go onto the online space, that's good as well. It is, I think it's fairly saturated. The big boys are in there and you always have that to compete with. So aiming your advice at the coaches could be a good way of doing that. There'll be a lot of people that want to learn about fitness and all the rest of it. And probably they also tick that box of like, I'm not a fitness freak, if you like, but I have an interest in it and I want to help people as well. A lot of the spin classes that I've been to in the past are not particularly massively active. They're not people that spend like 40 hours a week exercising that are teaching spin classes all the time. They're keen cyclists. They're, mums that have maybe had children and then decided to go back into work and they want to help with that side of things. So I think that could be quite good, and that is scalable in an easier way, because it's not based on locations all over the place. So I suppose if you want to scale Chateau Velo in terms of lots of locations, you really need to tighten up on that business model, because to try and replicate that kind of nice local, you factor, you have to find you in every location, because there will be people that don't have the energy and the enthusiasm or quite see the thing. And if you franchise it, you have to be like fairly structured in the way. Otherwise, you get one branch does it at some price, and other branches done in at that. I can't remember what the film is, but it's about McDonald's and their early days of when they went out to a franchise. And they actually, the original McDonald's people, they struggled with scaling it, because when they franchised it, what they went, we only do cheeseburgers and that's it. And then when they went to go and visit the stores across America, they would find they're doing chicken nuggets and all the stuff we know now. But actually at the time, and it was almost impossible for them to like police it, because it was just, you couldn't be there, you couldn't do all of that. So they had to have some really like kind of tight business models on quite how the model is represented when you arrive on site. So yeah, I think it depends. I think the first thing is that my main focus here is just to kind of get it so you're not burning yourself out, because that is not fun for anybody. And you know, it will, your passion for it all will die along with everything else if you continue along that route. So yeah, those simple tweaks, and it's about, I mean, we mentioned it earlier about keep it stupid simple, KISS, literally homepage, say what you do, pictures of coffee cups, you know, all that sort of stuff, a bicycle, have a bicycle out the front, like literally make it obvious. Our business, our primary one with Charles Cox, people often think we're estate agents, okay? And doesn't matter what I do, we don't really sell anything at all, but because we're in property, we must be an estate agent. That's quite a common assumption. But for me, I'm like, all right, I'll just play on that then. Like, I'll just call us an agent, because we're not an estate agent, we're a managing agent or a letting agent. But that's okay, because that's what they think, and it would take a lot of effort for us to get away from that. And then when I've done our research, even our biggest competitors in London that don't do sales particularly, people still think that they're just estate agents, because that's what anyone in property must do. So why fight against that? I'm not saying we're going to market ourselves as estate agents, but I'm not then correcting people, because it's a pointless thing. I might as well embrace that and try and go with that. Keep it simple. So yeah, I would make those tweaks on the website.
That's good.
Bicycles, coffee cups, get a bike out the front as well. I think I would hazard a guess the feedback. I know my staff are like a limited selection, but you can go to like networking groups and stuff and things like that and get feedback. And I would say if you had a bike at the front or something like that, then the feedback would be different. So time is of the essence, and you don't have time for this, but it'd be interesting to see like feedback now and then feedback when you put a bike out the front. But I suggest you probably don't waste your time with that. Just stick a bike
just
out.
Put a bike on,
Any old one will do. Couple of bicycles strapped to those tables that you got out the front or something like that. Even if someone pinches them, as long as they're cheap ones or something, they won't bother with that. And go to the networking events as well. I think I mentioned earlier, you know, if you like took your iPad or something and just passed it around and didn't tell people what you did, and just ask them to, without scrolling up and down and pressing anything, what do you think this homepage says to you? And then ask them for the feedback in your 60 seconds or whatever time you're allotted for it. You need to go to one that you haven't been to before, obviously. And see what they say. Because I think you will be surprised that a lot of people probably will figure out it's a spin class, but from the homepage, they might not association with the coffee maybe. And then they might look at the imagery as well, because a lot of people don't read anything at all anymore. They literally just images, look at pictures, videos. The attention span is incredibly short of the modern person nowadays. So I don't know if you had any comments or thoughts on that at all. Or?
No, I think it's amazing to get feedback from someone outside the bubble, as it were, because when you're in the middle, I think you kind of become almost all consumed by it, and you see it all every single day, and you're just like, it's obvious. I painted my building bright purple. You know, how can anyone notice me anymore? But then they will notice the building, as you say, but they don't know what we do. So actually, there is a huge piece that, to me, it's obvious because I've written indoor cycling and coffee house on the side of the building, but still, you know, the visualness isn't quite there. So,
I think
that's really helpful.
I love the little dotted lights that you've got that make it look cool, like almost like what celebrities have around their mirrors. It looks cool, but it doesn't scream bicycle or coffee shop, does it? That's more like a jazzy wine bar-y, maybe coffee shop type thing.
A European wine bar, evening vibe. Because we do sell wine as well, because we have a license.
It's the evening thing. And I think that it's good to do all those things. And I think they're really good revenue streams and the rest of it. But you do have to keep it simple for people. If you're trying to do cheese and wine and coffee and tea and spin classes and yoga things at the back as well, all those many things, it can be hard for people to understand what you're really about. In that kind of want to like get those revenue streams in and make the business work, you can dilute yourself a little bit too much. So I will concentrate on the coffee and the bicycle. The alcohol thing's good. I think that is nice, and you can have those events. And I'm sure probably sometimes when you do them, they're really well attended because there's like a build up to that sort of event. And especially if you have open mic nights and you had some guest speakers as well. Didn't you?
Yeah, so we've done a few different things.
So I think those different things are good, but they're not the primary focus. The primary focus has got to be the spin studio, because that is your repeating income.
Yeah.
The other bits are like your icing on the cake, essentially. The topping up the coffers. So I think they're kind of my things really that I would say. And I think once you've got that sorted, you can then start looking at how you're going to scale that up a little bit. So it's like phase one, stabilize, get regular income in and the rest of it. And I know it's easy for me to say, but then only then can you look at kind of scaling it really. But definitely make those kind of key changes and always have in the mind of like, what does somebody else think that I'm portraying to the world here? Because it is so difficult to not get wrapped up in your own business.
Yeah.
Even the website for what we're doing here, the Matthew Cox Enterprise one, I look at it and I try to like take myself away from it, because I look and I think, actually, it's too hard to find the button to fill the form in now, even though I know you filled the form in by email, but and then maybe we need a little video on there because people don't want to read anymore, and it's an ongoing evolution. And SEO is so important as well, like getting that right, as you know from Julia. We had Julia on the other week if anybody wants to reach out to her. But she can help you there with that to maximize it, make sure you're being found when people type in spin class, and then she can give you or you can get from whoever the data on it to see what people are actually searching to find you. Are they searching coffee shop, or are they searching spin studio, or are they or some hybrid of it really, aren't they? They're probably not looking for initially spin class and
coffee.
Coffee.
Exactly.
So I think that's what I would do if I was you, and put your heart into that. I know it's not going to instantly result in getting to your goal, but I think that's the only true way that you're going to get actually to the point where it's making a profit and you can kind of not be involved with it all of the time, because you can afford then to pay for people to come and serve the coffee or do the cycle classes or whatever it is, because you've got some recurring income and stability to it as well.
I think that's probably been the hardest thing for me, is actually, as you say, it's these small steps, it's the basics, it's the foundations that you've got to really work on. It does take time, and there's so many people online talking about, make money quickly and 10K months in 30 days and all this kind of stuff. Most of it is absolute rubbish. And when you're here, you then suddenly think, am I doing something wrong? Why am I not there yet? And actually, it is just taking those small steps and those small actions repeatedly. I've almost got my foundations there, and then I can build up in that scaling, I think. So
definitely. I mean, I like the business. I think it's good. I just think that you need to be focused and clear about the direction of what the message you're relaying and the direction, and also all those marketing touch points as well. Make it really simple. It's a highly competitive area, as you know, hospitality and indoor leisure as well. Like, you chose the two hardest things in the world to get into.
Love a challenge.
But I think that if you do them right, then you have a USP, which is the fact that you're an upmarket indoor cycling place, but not so upmarket that you put people off because it's only for kinos. This is upmarket in terms of the equipment and the bike and what you're being offered here, as opposed to your generic leisure centre, if you like, who've got maybe some spin bikes and then someone comes and shouts at you for a bit. that is, you need to like really pull on all of that to then say why people should go to you and not them, and avoid that kind of falling into I'm a jazzy wine bar with a bike thing at the back.
Yeah.
Because the bike thing at the back is the primary business driver, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, I think that's probably covered pretty much everything, really. I think we've gone over your various bits and bobs and what you do day to day and so on. So I don't know if there was anything specific you haven't asked or you wanted to ask at all. I mean, we've kind of gone over the medicine, I would think.
I was going to say, I already have my prescription, so I just need to go and start doing some things, I think.
Indeed. All right. Well, I mean, it's been really nice to see from the work that we did before to where you are now. And I know it doesn't feel like a lot, but for the audience, obviously, there was a time where you were losing money regularly, especially in the winter months. So for you to get to breaking even or there or thereabouts, that is a big achievement in its own right. So well done at doing that.
Thank you.
It'd be lovely to have you on in a year or something to see where we've got to. And I will keep looking at your website, make sure you make those changes. And I think that's probably it for today. But I wish you all the best. Just quickly before we go, so if people do want to find you, what's the website and the telephone numbers and all that kind of stuff? If they want to book on, what do they do?
Best thing to do is if you search Spin Peacehaven, we will come up top of the listing. Our website is www.chateauvelo.com. We are also on Facebook, Instagram, Chateau Velo Studio. You can also search for me, Davinium again. I'm the only one in the world right now. Yeah. So I'm quite easy to find online, and there's all sorts of bits and pieces about me. But pop in if you're nearby. We'd love to give you a studio tour, show you what it's all about, give you some amazing coffee, and get you sweaty.
And the first one, if they just want to come and try it, you do like a discounted thing or something?
Yeah, so you can get your first ride for £5, absolutely no commitment. You do not have to ever come back again if you don't want to. One-time thing is absolutely fine.
Yeah.
If you want to commit, we would love to have you back. So.
Brilliant. All right. Well, get cycling and get checking that website out. And we'll have you back on in a year's time.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Matt.
No worries. Thank you. So you made it to the end now. And I hope you really, really enjoyed that. It's been really interesting talking to Davinia. I literally spoken to her probably 2 or 3 times before. We've looked at lots of marketing plans and the rest of it. So I'm really delighted that she's finally getting out of the red and beginning to actually make a small profit, or maybe even just break even. But I've really got some major concerns about the way the business is being structured for growth, for how we're going to get it sustainable and get her out of there. So I really hope that she actually makes those next level of improvement. She's done like phase 1. We now need to be looking at phase 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever it might be, in order to get her to that level where she's not stuck in the business. I actually did a whole video on coffee shop owner. Literally, this is almost modelled on Davinia, and how they get stuck in the business and they never make it up that triangle of entrepreneurship. Right, I really hope you enjoyed today's audio podcast, and it's been really, really great having today's guest on, and I hope that you can all pick up some really amazing tips and hints, some structures to their businesses and the rest of it, and really what I would do if I was in their shoes. If you want to come on the audio podcast, what you need to do is head over to our website, www.matthewcox.biz. That's Matthew with 2 T's. There's a pre-filled out form for you on there. Fill that in. That goes off. We'll get you on the podcast. It's filmed for YouTube, and then it also goes on Apple, Spotify, all those kind of streaming services. It's free of charge. Just come on the show, have a chat, open and frank with me, and then you can use all those bits for your own social medias if you want to, or whatever. And it goes, as I say, on audio and on YouTube. So if you want to apply for the podcast, please head over to matthewcox.biz and apply online. Thank you.